Shabbat Shalom. This week's portion is Naso, to carry or to appoint. And it begins with the story of the special sacrifices of the heads, the princes, the heads of each tribe, and the dedication of the tabernacle. I'm going to focus, however, on one of the smaller yet very interesting topics dealt with in this week's portion, and that is the issue of the sotah. A sotah is a woman who is accused by her husband of having been an adulteress. And there's a very special ceremony that Scripture tells us. And this is in chapter 5, Numbers chapter 5. It tells the story of if there's a person, if there's a man who suspects his wife of having been unfaithful to him, of having been with another man, which of course is a very, very serious transgression by a woman, punishable by death. The way the Scripture puts it, though, is very interesting. It talks about a spirit of jealousy. Verse 14, and the spirit of jealousy came upon him, and he be jealous of his wife, and she be defiled. Or if the spirit of jealousy come upon him, and he be jealous of his wife, and she be not defiled. What is a constant in this description is the fact that the man is jealous. He suspects his wife. What we don't know is whether his wife is indeed guilty of adultery, or if he's merely paranoid and suspicious, and she is indeed innocent. The procedure then is that he brings her to the temple, and there's a certain type of sacrifices that are brought. But the key here is the fact that the woman is given bitter water to drink. And if indeed she is innocent, nothing happens to her. Not only does nothing happen to her, but Scripture tells us that Scripture tells us that she will, this is in verse 28, and if the woman be not defiled, but be clean, then she shall be free and shall conceive seed. Not only is she deemed innocent, she goes back to her husband and they resume normal married life, but Scripture promises that she will immediately conceive. And I think this is very important, very interesting blessing, because clearly if a husband suspects his wife and she's innocent, it's still not going to be that easy for that husband and wife to come together again and to trust one another. And in biblical times also, a woman getting a divorce is a very, very difficult thing from an economic point of view. It wouldn't have been very easy for a woman to just say, he doesn't trust me, I'm walking away from him. It wasn't an easy thing to do. And so what Scripture says here is that God is promising this woman that she will conceive a child. And that, of course, makes it a lot easier for her and her husband to come back together again, because there is this child that will unite them. And, of course, it gives her a sense of dignity and a sense of pride. This is something that she can produce. She will now have a child, which is very, very special. And, of course, if she indeed is guilty, then she, as a result of this drinking the bitter waters, she will end up dying. Now, many have questioned this. This seems to be a ceremony that is difficult for a woman to go through. It's embarrassing. Part of the ceremony is that her hair is let loose. Her head covering is removed. And by the way, this is one of the biblical sources for the custom where Jewish women always wear a hat or have something on their hair, because if the Bible talks about removing the hair covering or loosening the hair of the woman, clearly the assumption was that married women at least, walked around with this kind of head covering. That's just an aside. But it is an embarrassing ceremony. But I think what it also is a liberating ceremony. And go back to the words of the Scripture of a jealous spirit or a bad spirit that comes across the man. it's so easy for a man to accuse his woman of adultery, or his wife of adultery. And what this ceremony actually does is enable the woman to clear her name, if indeed she is innocent. This enables truth to come out, and God has set forth this system. What happened actually in practice, though, is that this ceremony was almost never used, and at some point it was absolutely abandoned. Because at the point at which it became a vehicle for men to embarrass their wives, for men to falsely accuse their wives, as soon as it became a time where both men and women were not very loyal to one another, at that point the ceremony becomes worthless, and our sages abandoned its use. But I think that it's important for us to understand what was the purpose of this ceremony to begin with. And the ability of a woman accused of adultery to clear her name and to come out with a considered pure and to have a child, I think is actually an incredible part of this scripture, and one that we dare not lose focus on. And I think today, we all know, not just women, but so many people are accused all the time of sexual indecencies, of terrible crimes. And these are issues that are always done in private. If somebody is raped, if a husband is abusive to a wife, if a wife is abusive to a husband, or if parents are abusive to children, if it's done certain ways, certainly sexual kind of abuse, is very often very hard to prove, because these things are done behind closed doors. And there's always that balance between, are you going to protect the victim and go overboard to protect the victim, and therefore perhaps give credence to the victim's claim beyond what evidence can show? Or on the other hand, are you going to be concerned about protecting the reputation of the person who is accused, and ensure that you need a certain amount of evidence? And of course, this is a kind of a situation that courts and individuals grapple with all the time, and today especially, when so much of this sort of thing is going on and there's so many accusations of this course. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we had bitter waters? Wouldn't it be wonderful if there was some way that we would know from God what the truth was, and only the people who were truly guilty were punished, and those who were falsely accused would be vindicated? Shabbat Shalom from Samaria.
Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat.